Happy Brandon Ayuk Day, or as other people call it, April Fool's Day. What did Kyle Shanahan say at the owners' meetings? Steph Sanchez and I will break it all down right after this. I'm Jason Aponte. That's Steph Sanchez. This is the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network, the only podcast that has been voted best hair for both co-hosts 4 years in a row. Steph, how are you today?
I like how you throw yourself in there, but you know.
Yeah.
Where is it? Where is your hair? Like you're wearing a hat today.
I'm not getting a haircut because I have a trip for Miami on Thursday. I'm getting a haircut before that. So, yeah, there's no reason to waste the haircut and then do it again, especially in this economy, because things are rough all around. Haircuts are expensive, and so are NFL players, Steph, right?
Nice segue.
Yeah, you like that, right? Well, have you heard the joke about Cleveland trading for Brandon Ayuk? No, told you that was never going to happen, and they were completely out because that would never happen. But have you heard the joke about Kyle Shanahan and his awesome, amazing center?
I mean, only a center a mother could love, and that mother being Kyle Shanahan in this case. Yeah, I've heard about that one.
So I don't want to start this on a bad note. Unfortunately, guys, your starting offensive line is intact. Your center, your right tackle. I have no problem with Colton McKivitz. The only thing that's left up in the air is left guard. But yeah, we are not getting an upgrade at center, are we, Steph?
Okay, so whether or not you or I or anyone else has a problem with Colton McKivitz, I don't really think is the point. I think like this team has told us several times, hey, like we're always looking at ways to improve our team. We're always looking to, have competition and all that, except when it comes to Jake Brendel, apparently. I mean, like, and even when asked specifically about Matt Hennessy, who the 49ers brought in last season, signed him to a 2-year deal, he even said, I don't see Jake Brendel as being in a competition with Matt Hennessy. So, yeah, I mean, it does look like that's what we're getting. We're going to get Jake Brendel as a center for another year at least. And, I mean, he's pretty old. So, like, that's the other thing, right? Like, how much longer can he hold up? You got to look for replacements eventually. So, I guess that's just not going to be in 2025.
Here's the thing. I'm far from the person that believes that the 49ers offensive line is like bottom 5. I think that is completely overblown. The sum of its parts is not that at all. I think it's average. It's an average offensive line. And I would implore people to watch other teams around the league, and you can see how bad it really can get when you have offensive line that's really bad. As far as bang for your buck, Colton McKivitz for $2 million to be an average right tackle, that's incredible value. And I think that's how we should be measuring it. You're essentially getting what you got and maybe a little bit more from Mike McGlinchey for $2 million and not a high draft pick and not all that money that you were giving him. The Jake Brendel thing is a little bit, I don't know if he knows where the bodies are. I don't know if he has some dirt on Chris Forrester and Kyle Shanahan, but it's been a steady decline year after year.
Right.
Third worst with allowing penalties with 10, 26 hurries allowed according to PFF. And we understand that offensive line play is tied to the quarterback, the wide receivers, and the offensive linemen. But I think you don't have to gaslight people to know that Jake Brendel is probably the weak link on this offensive line. And short area quickness, fine, that's great. Short yardage, just not so great. It's been worse year after year. And when this offense, funny enough, the year that they went crazy and had insane efficiency, it was Jake Brendel that was the center. But when this offense is peaking and rolling, it's when they have a really good center, Alex Mack, and even when it was Weston Richburg. But yeah, it's not gonna change. And he even talked about Kyle Shanahan, that is, about Matt Hennessy being a guard. Like, not even saying
Mhm.
anything about him playing. He was just like, oh, we have an open spot at guard. So Matt Hennessy might be the left guard. So that means it's him, Burford, and Barch. But yeah, it's going to be Brendel at center. And I think we have nothing to, we have nothing right now to really complain. Well, not complain about, but I'm just saying we have nothing to do with the decision.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the fan perception of the offensive line is far worse than what is the reality of it. But yeah, at the very least, I think it'd be nice to be like, hey, yeah, like we're gonna have some competition for Brendel, just like we do for every position. And if he ended up winning that competition in camp, then so be it, right? But we haven't heard about any of that, right? So I think that's where it's gonna rub people the wrong way. But Kyle, I mean, Jay, we we just learned so much about this team and Kyle's opinions on this team from what he had to say speaking with the media today. 30 minutes that he spoke with the media. I'm glad we got a couple of quotes from the entire thing that the beat writers thought was interesting, but thankfully the video's out there for all to see now on David Lombardi's channel.
What was the over under on Denver Broncos questions? Because they just wasted coach's time. I understand
doing their job.
I understand that there's Denver Broncos reporters, and you wanted to go over to Kyle Shanahan. You wanted to get a soundbite because of Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga. But you asked 5 to 6 questions, which wasted 8 to 10 minutes. We don't have time for who cares who's a Bronco. They're not 49ers anymore. What are we getting in Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw? You're getting a safety and a linebacker. That's what you're getting. And thanks for wasting coach's time. But yeah, it was interesting to hear some of the things that coach had to say. I thought, and I'll start here, I thought it was really interesting that he said, we signed Luke Farrell so we can get George Kittle to run some more routes.
Interesting concept.
I love that, coach. I love that. You're learning. And he said, when you have someone that's as good at blocking as George Kittle is pass protection, but he's better as a route runner, we have to find a way to free him up and get him out there. Steph, could it be that maybe George Kittle might see more targets than he saw last season and possibly close to Trey McBride and Brock Bowers?
Holy hell, I hope so, man. I mean, we know that George Kittle can unlock this offense for Kyle, for Brock, and especially in the red zone. Like in the 49ers weren't great in the red zone last year's, but I think the only good thing about the 49ers red zone offense was George Kittle whenever he got that opportunity. And so, yeah, I mean, this is basically what people have been asking for some time now. I mean, I think ever since Charlie Warner left, which, to be honest with you, I think all of us took Charlie Warner for granted. I think we were all okay with seeing him go. I'm sure some people even thought he sucked just because he wasn't a pass catching tight end, right? Oh, what does he do
because
here?
He dropped that pass in Atlanta.
Well, that too.
He dropped
that
pass.
Help.
That like that wide open.
And then the Falcons signed him.
And then the Falcons signed him. Yeah, they were like, you know what? We need that guy.
Yeah, we need more of that. But yeah, I mean, the 49ers just haven't had a stellar blocking TE2, and obviously they see that for Luke Farrell. And when all these fans were asking, why would you pay Luke Farrell that much? Well, it's because the 49ers see this as, pretty important role in their offense, which begs the question, okay, well then why'd you let Charlie Warner walk? I would still have that question today, but, couple years removed from that. So I guess, it doesn't matter, but Luke Farrell is now looked to as being that guy, I think, for the 49ers. And yeah, if that opens things up for George Kittle, I think we're all going to be happy 49er fans at the end of this.
For sure. Absolutely. And think about it, with the Brandon Ayuk thing and the recovery timeline, which Kyle Shanahan did speak about that. And he said that he's doing well. There's a chance for week 1, but there's not anything to be certain. I wouldn't bet on week 1. I think that's a little overambitious, especially given the severity of the knee injury. But you know what? He could have the Wolverine healing factor and he could be back week 1, and that would be great, and it makes your team more potent. By the way, Brandon Ayuk, San Francisco 49er for 2025. Rich man today. He woke up with $22 million in the bank, and I hope Jed York didn't party too hard last night because he did have to fit that bill this morning, and he had to pay a few other people as well. So I hope you've been careful with your money, Jed, because you had to make sure you got that money out today. But it was interesting to hear that, and it was kind of interesting to hear about the evolution of the offense. And someone asked about, the whole Kyle Juszczyk thing and what that entailed, and he said that they let him explore, see what he was worth, and then he came back and they met at a number, and it was really about just like cost clearing and things like that. So that was really nothing. I thought this was really interesting, and I don't know if Rob has a clip, but they were talking about roster building, and they were talking about the draft where Jair Brown was the first pick, and then they took Jake Moody, and he said, so we didn't really have any other starters to address, so we took a kicker in the 3rd round.
Yeah, please play the audio, Rob, if you have that for all to hear.
Gone into drafts these last few years, not as much last year, but especially the 2 years prior to where you look at our board and it's like, man, we don't really have to find a starter anywhere. You got to find depth because quickly they're a starter with an injury. I remember going into 3 years ago and felt the only starting position we could find was a kicker because we were so solidified. And it really isn't that way this year. So we're going to go into this draft, hopefully add 11 people. We'll see how that plans out, add them into our OTAs, and hopefully we'll have some really good competition come training camp.
Kyle.
This
Kyle.
is egregious.
Kyle. Are you fucking kidding me? Bleep it up. All right. So you said we didn't have a starter that we needed to address. We needed depth. So why didn't you draft another lineman? Why didn't you draft another tight end? Why didn't you draft another football player? Because injuries happen every single day in the NFL. That was one of the worst things I've ever heard in terms of roster building. And on top of that, he was asked about bringing in a kicker to compete with Jake Moody, and he said, yes, our new special teams coordinator is scouring the kicking camps, and he's looking around in college. Why didn't you do that the first time? Why did you feel that it was necessary to burn a top 100 pick on a specialist? And then to have the nerve to say, we didn't need any other starting positions, so that's why we took a kicker, is either one, insanely stupid, or two, insanely arrogant. And it might be both, Steph. It might be both.
It's absolutely egregious to me that not only was this the 49ers way of thinking about their drafts in like the last few years, the last one not included, but like the last couple years before that, that's absolutely egregious that you're only drafting based on that year, on that year's roster. Like, that's just not how you build teams. And I get it. The team was already built. But in order to sustain a level of success, don't you think it would have been smart for them to continue to draft good players? And this is
just football players.
Yeah, I mean, that too. But like for Kyle to, one, have this line of thought and to actually admit it, I think is absolutely insane to me. And the fact that there's so many people involved in this decision making, in drafting and all that, and everyone agreed with this, like, that is insane to me. That is embarrassing.
Thanks, Adam Peters.
It is so embarrassing that any team would piss away 2-3 drafts just because they felt like their team was so stacked and so loaded already. I don't always give a shit about the starters. Like, great, you have starters. Like, you still need to have other guys waiting in the wings. And you know why the 49ers are at a point, or got to a point, where they felt like they needed to pay to keep all these guys, all these aging players, is because they didn't have anyone else waiting in the wings. And you could have, had you just continue to draft like a normal freaking team. Like, that one really bothers me. I stand with a lot of decisions, and I can come to the realization of where they were at and where their heads were at on some decisions. This is one I can't wrap my head around, and I can't agree with ever. Like, that's just insane to me. And again, I think it's a large part why they're in the spot that they're at now. I think it's just as bad as egregious as the Trey Lance pick. and how much they gave up for that. In hindsight, of course, but man, for him to admit that so nonchalantly is alarming, because I don't even think he sees what was wrong with that way of thinking to begin with. Because I don't think you'd be admitting that if you thought it was a mistake.
And the other thing is, if you look at the way that the 49ers prepared for the losses that were coming, Mooney Ward's going to leave and Hufunga's going to leave, and you draft Ronaldo Green and Malik Mustafa. Why wasn't this thought process put into motion then? And that was the pushback that I got when I was up in arms about the kicker pick. Well, all they need is a kicker. They don't need anything else. They're set at everything else.
Right.
Yeah, you're set until you're not. And then injuries happen. And then guys leave in free agency. Or guys play poorly. Continue to draft football players. It was an arrogant pick. It was a stupid pick. And to hear him say that out loud, I don't want to keep rehashing this because, everybody thinks I have it out for Jake Moody. I would have it out for any kicker that was drafted. Any kicker. I don't care who it was. Because no one is worth the top 100 pick. Not one prospect is worth it. None of them. He's the best kicker in the draft. There is no such thing. There's no such thing as the best kicker in the draft. There's kickers in the draft. There are no best kickers in the draft. They're just guys who kick footballs, and you can find them everywhere. But this thought process going back is just, come on, man. Like, what are we doing here? And then, and you're right, Steph. It does come off like, oh, well, yeah, well, that's it. We just addressed it, like, whatever. And if someone were to push back, then you know what Kyle would do. Well, you don't really know ball, man. So I don't expect you to understand. If you looked into a little bit more, like, come on. Like, that's the thing is, don't, whatever. It's like what Rob says. What is it? Don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining, whatever it is. It's just like, look, man, if that's your thought process, then keep it to yourself.
Yeah, please. Like that's the most insane thing to me. Oh my God. Like I can't even. And usually this team is so careful about like what they say and not admitting certain things. And I think this was one that I really wish they would have just agreed to never share. I think we suspected it, Jay, because we've talked about it on the show before. Like those drafts felt like just dart throws. Cam Latu as well. Like, can we talk about that? Like, and this team was like drafting dudes that were raw that you had to develop, and they had no interest in actually developing them or having them be the next man up. So this is one of the most annoying things I've ever heard about this regime. Unfortunately, like that one's tough. I just hope like they know, and I think they do understand the urgency of this draft. They can't do anything close to what they did in those drafts in this one,
And I think Kyle alluded to that about, this draft is so important. We have to really hit here, and it's okay. Like, all right, you gave us the insight into why you're in this position, off the rip. We knew that already, but then you admitted to it. So it's like, gives us a little bit more insight. But he was asked about the running back position, and Christian's doing well. And, we're excited to get Patrick back, and we like Isaac Guerrero, but he goes, every year we go to get a new guy. So, Steph, who's the running back that Kyle's going to draft this year? Please tell me it's Trevor Etienne.
You love Trevor Etienne. Jaden Blue's like a guy that fits the offense. He's got a lot of speed. He has fumbling issues. But, like, we knew that Kyle was going to draft himself a running back. And then, like, he tried to pretend that he was sad about Jordan Mason and letting him go. He is like, oh, yeah, that was real
right.
tough.
And
it was like,
that's what I was going to point to, because he got like this smile on his face about like talking about running backs, and he's just like, yeah, I'm going to get me one. I'm going to look and get me one. So again, it's just like what we just said. We suspected that was the thought process when you wanted a kicker, and now we know this is your thought process when it comes to running back, because he had this like snicker like on his face, like, yeah, I'm going to get me another one.
I'm leaving here with something.
Yeah, he's like, I know we're going to get another one. That's fine though. Again, though,
yeah,
you do need to add another running back to this because he talked about Garendo not being able to finish the season. He said if everything goes well, he would love Christian McCaffrey. You don't want to rely on Patrick Taylor, and you also have to plan for life down the road at running back, especially when you don't have to pay them. So yeah.
No, now they want to plan for that. That's cool. Yeah.
Well, they did it last year, right? They didn't care about it during the Jake Moody draft. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the draft before that, I feel like. But yeah, another thing that he said in regards to the draft was talking about linebackers. He was asked specifically about D. Winters and him potentially being that next man up. Said kind of similar things like, had a glowing review of him. Also said, he needs to work on being able to play a full season, right? Because he got nicked and bruised quite a bit and often wasn't able to finish games. So D. Winters, someone they like, obviously, but also someone they can't necessarily depend on fully, because he did also say, like, hopefully we get some linebackers in this draft. So that's another position I think they're going to be looking at quite heavily. And obviously with the departure of Dre Greenlaw, I think that put it a little bit higher on their list of things to address and prioritize in this draft. So yeah, running back, linebacker, definitely two positions I think we can pencil in as for sure, positions they address in the draft,
especially with 11 picks, right?
I
mean, it can't all be kickers. So I mean, yeah, I'm not letting that go. You definitely have to like spread it around and everything as well too. You know what? I actually wanted to talk about this because I felt like the star of the interview was Matt Barrows, because Matt Barrows was sitting right next to Kyle, and he was killing it. He was the one asking the tough questions. So he asked the question about, well, if you wanted to get Dre Greenlaw, why didn't you get it done earlier? I don't know if you have the clip, Rob. Can you cut it out if you have it? I don't know if he does.
He's got to. That was a good one.
He's got to. Let's see.
Don't have it.
Don't have it. Okay.
Damn.
Well, he doesn't have it, but he was asked about why you didn't go and why it took you so long to get there. And Kyle gave an answer of, well, that's negotiations. We also have 20 different other things going on. We have other players that we're trying to get. And then he lives in Texas. It's not like we can just have him come by the building. Steph, you go. Like, you go for it. Yeah, you go for it.
Okay, I think this is a question we all pretty much had, right? And the 11th hour last ditch effort to try to get him back, I think is, noble, honorable, maybe, but you had the opportunity to not even let it get to that point. So I do appreciate Matt Barrows asking that question. I think Tim K and Barrows discussed it a lot on their podcast, and Tim K wanted Barrows to ask that question. So I'm really glad that he did. And so Kyle's excuse, I'm gonna call it an excuse, because to say that because you had all these other things and all these other players that, you wanted to get under contract, that's the NFL. That's the offseason. That's free agency. You do that every single year. And yet there's teams who are able to get their guys back, and there are teams who are able to get these deals done, before free agency even hits. And, the rumors were that the 49ers had made an offer to Dre Greenlaw before the end of the season. And then it was like a 1-year deal, right? Obviously not a deal sufficient enough to have Greenlaw not want to test free agency. And that there is the problem. If at the end their offer ended up being more than the Broncos, why didn't you make that offer before? Oh, because it's negotiating tactics. And that is where their negotiating tactics are kind of shitty, because they often put themselves in these situations. When it works out for them, when it works out perfectly, it's great, right? Because then we're like, oh, they got this player on a sweet deal. But then when you're talking about players like Dre Greenlaw, who why are you trying to lowball a player like Greenlaw to begin with? A player who has been a starter for your team, a player who obviously another team is going to find value in. But they were banking on another team not having that same level of interest in Dre Greenlaw. And so when the market was set, they're like, oh shoot, okay, we got to respond. And John Lynch had I don't have his full quote, but I know that he said they were reactive on the Dre Greenlaw thing. They put themselves in that situation. And I get some people are bringing up the fact that, Greenlaw wanted to be the main guy on whatever team he wanted to be in. And I think so too. But had he just gotten the offer that he probably wanted before, like during the season, I don't even think that thought crosses his mind. I think he'd be more than happy to just be back with the Niners. But like once, he got that offer, he wanted to test free agency, you start thinking about all those things, right? What you could be on another team, what you could be if you're the main guy. And again, like the 49ers put themselves in that position where then they're having to react and they're late on it. So I can't blame them. I can't feel sorry for them for missing out on getting Dre Greenlaw back.
Yeah, it's two things could be true. For sure, that Greenlaw wanted to be the man. And Denver's defense is probably the best place to start. The number one defense last season. They've certainly upgraded with Greenlaw and Hufanga. And also the 49ers treated Greenlaw like that scene in Happy Gilmore. Good, get the hell out of here. Who needs you? Beat it. Leave me alone. I'm sorry, baby. I didn't mean that. I just been tired. Again, you can't throw your toxic ex out and then, at the last minute be like, baby, please come home. It's too late. It's too late.
Exactly
It's too late. It's too late. If you really wanted to treat him right, you could have done that from the outset. I saw we had a super chat real quick, and I can't wait to talk about this next topic to get into. The Big 25 says, what he says about Brendel tells you all about Shanahan and Lynch. Shaking my damn head. Guys, Jake Brendel's going to be the starter at center, and Kyle Shanahan considers him one of the top centers in the NFL. So take that for what it's worth. Okay. Dre Greenlaw stuff aside, the Mac Jones thing comes up. And I don't know who asked the question, but this was a great thing to ask. And he asked and said, have you spoken to him about what happened in the draft when you had a chance? Because I'm sure that Mac thought he was going to be the pick at 3. And then Kyle says, yeah, I spoke to him, after, and, I've got a relationship with him, and, he's, shown that, I love the way he plays the position. Fine. But he said something that was a little bit off. And here's what I'm going to push back on. That's what we tried to do when we traded up to number 3, was to get a rookie quarterback and reset the position, because that was the plan all along. Well, Steph, you know why that doesn't work? And you know why that's not the plan all along? Because you were inches away from getting Matthew Stafford. That's not a rookie quarterback. You were trading for him, right? Didn't happen. Then you trade up when you've exhausted all of your options because you were trying to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo. And then, let's not forget, on draft night, when you're sitting at number 3, you called the Green Bay Packers about Aaron Rodgers. So you see what I'm talking about with this whole, it was always part of the plan. Yeah, plan Z. Not plan A, B, C, D, E, F. Plan Z. Why do Kyle Shanahan think he can lie to us? Right to our faces.
I feel like this team is never fully set on the quarterback that they have. And I know people may disagree with that. I think even including Brock Purdy, that's just my interpretation of the situation. I don't think they're fully in on anybody. Anybody can go, anybody can be replaced when it comes to the quarterback position on this team, from what I've seen since 2017. Wouldn't you say so, Jay?
I don't know, man. Look, Steph, I think, look, all right. Let me not give up so quickly. Everybody's here to hear what we have to say or whatever. I don't like it because there's a clear, definitive timeline of you going through every single quarterback position player, right? We even heard names like Andy Dalton and this guy and that guy, right? During that time when you were trying to move on from Jimmy after 2020. And then you lie and say, yeah, we've always wanted to go up to pick 3. No, you panicked after Matthew Stafford went to the Rams. Then you moved up to 3, and then you panicked again after you moved up to 3 and researched all the quarterbacks and called the Green Bay Packers and said, do you want number 3? Because we'll just take Aaron Rodgers and take the known commodity. Why do you think you can lie about the timeline when it's outlined? Everyone knows what happened. Matthew Stafford literally said, I thought I was going to be a 49er. What about that screams that we always wanted a rookie quarterback in 2021, Steph?
I mean, definitely agree that it was reactive. I think they were also reactive and not just going with Mac Jones, because I still think that's who Kyle wanted. And there was a lot of online reaction against that. And
Well,
I
we
think
bullied him
that,
out of it.
yeah. And even hearing him say the things he said about Mac was like, yeah, it's kind of funny to put all that time into him in the draft and wait years later to get him. That was like, why? It was almost like I put all this work into him because I that's who I wanted, and it's kind of funny that now he's on the team. That's what I got, but that's me thinking that he was the pick to begin with. So there was a lot of knee-jerk reactions that offseason and that followed, that obviously hurt the team and might have put the team back some couple years. I don't know.
Steph, here's the other thing too. When he was talking about Greenlaw, he was talking about, oh, we had 20 different things going on. He goes, and then you open up Twitter and you see something and you have to react to it. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
Kyle does look at Twitter, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. for
Very
sure.
interesting. My ears perked up right there because he said, yeah, we had an idea of what was going on and we were doing 20 different things and we want safeties and we wanted a linebacker, we wanted a quarterback. And then you open up Twitter and you open up Twitter?
But
What?
of course, they open up Twitter. I mean, John Lynch famously opening Twitter during Christmas Mass, but you know, they also it's obvious because they do a lot of, I don't want to say like damage control, but the PR machine is working. And I'm going to use this as a segue to another topic and talking about
Go
Brock
for it.
Purdy, because I think the quote that we had about Brock Purdy, and both John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and even Jed, I think, have said similar things, have kind of put it all on Brock. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
When he's ready. When he's ready, we can get this done. Putting it all on him, like as if they probably don't have a shitty offer on the table right now. Yeah, so this is the quote from Jed York earlier. Quote, I think contract talks have been good. It's not conversations that I'm having. He's got to make a decision with what he wants to do. I don't think we're that far apart. I think we can sit down and get something done. Whenever he's ready, we're ready. End quote. Do you remember like similar things like that being said for like Brandon Ayuk, for like some other contract negotiations as well? Like, this is what they do. They put it on the player, and they absolutely check social media. They might be, someone is probably listening to this podcast right now, you know, just to see what the fan perception is on some of these things. They like to control the narrative. In my opinion, that's how I see it.
Well, you can't control the narrative when all you literally do is wait to the last minute and cave and then give the player more than you wanted to. This organization is so concerned about winning the deal. What deal have they won?
Yeah.
What deal have they won?
Exactly.
Which deal did they win? Did they win the Brandon Ayuk one? Did they win the Nick Bosa one? Did they win the Fred Warner one? So here's the pattern. We're going to try to win the deal, and and then this thing drags out into OTAs, into training camp, into right before. And they said, we're looking to get it done before the season starts. As long as it's the day before the season, they're not lying. What? I don't understand. Again, why are you lying to us? All you've ever done is never get this done with anybody that was a free agent, that was somebody that wanted a new deal. Never. So why should we think that anything's going to be different now? So that's my thing. We want to win the deal. You haven't won one negotiation. Not with Nick Bosa, not with George Kittle, not with Fred Warner, not with Brandon Ayuk. So why do you think you're going to win this one? And it serves no purpose right now for Brock Purdy to sit down and sign his deal on April 1st. Why? There's nothing going on right now. He can wait as long as he wants. But again, like you said, they for sure have something that's really insulting, like on the table, most likely. And that's going to be the part of the negotiations that people forget. They're not talking today on April 1st because there's going to be times where they throw a deal on the table and Brock and his agent are like, you know what? we'll see you in a few days. We're getting up
Yeah.
out of here. I'm out.
We need a
You know,
break.
we'll talk in a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're just sitting there just having, cup of coffee together, and they have like when one of those terrible offers comes across, him and his agent are just going to leave the table. So yeah, this is going to take forever. And why wouldn't you believe that it did? Because every other deal literally takes forever.
Right.
I
mean,
I'm
they've set that
I'm not expecting this to be
expectation.
done early. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
expecting it to be done
exactly.
early at all.
And like
At all.
again, this is the same thing that we've heard from John Lynch and everyone else with all these other deals. Oh, like we want to get this done ASAP. I'm not buying it. Like, I want to be optimistic, obviously, but I'm just like, I gotta see it. Like we gotta see it first. So hopefully this is the one that breaks the mold, breaks the precedent of what they've established the last few years with these deals. I understand, Diamador Lenore deal was a
But he wasn't up
great
for a
one.
deal. He
I
wasn't up
know,
for
I
a deal,
know.
and neither was
But like we
Greenlaw.
gotta acknowledge that as well as like
Yeah,
them
but
doing the right
there was no
thing.
pressure. There was no pressure to get that
No,
done.
I
Like, he
agree.
wasn't
I
gonna
agree.
threaten to hold out. Like, I think that's what I mean. It's like it's always the ones that are just like, hey, I'm gonna hold out if you don't.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
no, that one's good, and the Dre Greenlaw one was really good too because that looked like pennies on the dollar, like right there. Like those two
it
deals,
still looks great.
they're gonna look great. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, so you do have to throw that in there. I mean, when it's an off season of I'm gonna hold out, I want this amount of money, and the 49ers are like, we're only gonna pay you this amount of money, only to cave at the end, and then
Exactly.
have to pay more.
They've shown players that they will cave at the end of it. So what, to your point, what incentive does Brock Purdy have to sign any deal right now when he knows, especially being the quarterback, you don't want to mess this up with the quarterback. You don't want to go into off-season programs without your QB1 there. So yeah, there's pressure on the 49ers to get this done. And when that pressure has been applied at the very end, they've shown that they would cave. So yeah, Brock can wait this one out if he wants to.
Yeah, he can. And it would be nice if we lived in a utopia, in a perfect world, that, this contract would be done and we can get to OTAs and minicamp and all that stuff, and there's no issues. But why would you expect anything different? Seriously. I mean, unfortunately, I mean that, like, again, you want to start this thing rolling, and I think we've been very steadfast of just getting this done because we want him to build this rapport up. Ricky Pearsall in year 2. Let's get Jacob Cowan rolling. Let's figure out what we've got with these guys, and let's start by getting him in at the right time with them. Doesn't mean that they can't throw to each other on, their own time, which, we've seen and stuff like that. But it would be really cool if we had one off season in which everybody, including the quarterback one, is just there for all phases of the program, and they just do things normally, like, how other franchises do at times, right?
I think Rob said we have the quote from Kyle talking about Brock not wanting to hold out. You want
Go for it.
roll down?
I hope not, and I know Brock doesn't want to do that. We don't want to do that. I mean, no one wants to do that, but these are negotiations that go on between agents and our organization, and it's over a lot of money and stuff. Those aren't just things that you just knock out right away. But I believe that we will. I hope that we do, and hopefully it won't come in any football stuff.
And I think, again, and this is just me based off of the nice guy that I think Brock Purdy is. I don't think that Brock Purdy would actually hold out as well either, right? Like, I just don't think that's in his DNA, right? Like, that's just not in his DNA. But on the advice of his agent, in the interest of getting the best deal, who knows, that could change. But sounds like Kyle believes that as well too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyle's taking the more optimistic approach on all this, and he didn't really have the team speak as much as Jed and John. But yeah, I mean, obviously you don't want this to go to the off-season program. You don't want it to impact the football aspect of it. And yeah, I mean, hopefully it doesn't. We know that these negotiations get contentious. We know that it's between the agents and the teams, and both Jed and Kyle have kind of been like, ask them kind of thing. And Yeah, I think because it's gotten so nasty, it's like no one wants to admit that they're part of those conversations because like it takes so long and everyone's like, what the hell are you guys doing? What is happening? Um, so no one wants to admit they're part of it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just think with all these years that we've seen these contracts happen, and again with these players that are due their contracts and it getting dragged out, what's a common denominator, right? I think we're all starting to see that.
And you know what's funny? If you need any other proof, does anybody remember right after the Brandon Ayuk signing, Adam Schefter running to Twitter and saying, this was the deal the 49ers had on the table the entire time
Yeah.
for him?
Oh my God. Again, like even after a deal gets done to try to frame the narrative that it was all on the player. Like that's it's crazy.
Again, all of this stuff is, we're parsing through it. It's hard to take anything that's being said for face value, right? And especially when you lie about timelines. When you lied about the whole idea of like, oh, we always wanted a rookie quarterback in 2021. No, you didn't. You panicked to that. When you lie about, oh, it's the player that's waiting. No, that's a lie. That's never that, right? So it's just funny because this organization seems to be in the business of winning the deal, winning the negotiation, but they've never won one with any of these high profile players. And they've dragged it out and they've let it get to the end. And then they've had to pay more than they did before. So why do we think that anything is going to change right now? Even though I think Brock is a nice guy who won't, drag this out. And he's at least not going to run the social media and delete all of his 49ers pictures or anything like that, or tweet anything. So you can say that's cool. But why would we expect this to be a little bit different than everything else that's gone on? Steph, is there anything else that you took away from Kyle Shanahan's 32 minutes? Oh, by the way, the Indianapolis Colts, they're getting a great player in Mooney Ward. Not sure if you knew that as well, too. God. Stop letting other teams ask coach questions. We have real questions to ask this man, right? Like legit questions. Like, and you're asking about what the Colts are getting with Mooney Ward. You're getting a cornerback. Like, come on, man. Like you just wasted his time. But did you find anything else that you thought was interesting in there?
No, I think for the most part, like we've covered everything. Oh, actually, one thing that I thought was interesting is Kyle was asked about if he evaluates the offense in like adding new wrinkles from year to year,
or how Mitch Wishnowski's doing, like Nick's saying.
Oh my! Wait, did he get asked about Mitch?
Of course he did. Hard hitting questions.
God.
How's Mitch Wishnowski doing? Who fucking cares?
Who cares at a time like this?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
But no, I thought what he said was good. Obviously he mentions that he studies other offenses, what other teams are doing. But I think what he went on to say was more important, right? Like he kind of went into how the players that he has kind of allows him to add those new wrinkles. So it's all kind of dependent on the personnel. He mentioned Christian McCaffrey, like bringing him on, open things up. George Kittle, a player like Debo, open things up. So that I find very interesting because, the 49ers are going into, and Rob, actually, why don't you play the audio? I know you said you had it. So let's have
Go
people.
for it.
Yeah, I always try to do that. I always try to study offenses and what people are doing, what we're doing. But most of creativity or stuff that you come up with has to do with not just making stuff up. It has to do with thinking about how to use your players. So when you get certain guys or you get a different guy, it intrigues you a different way. And like when we got Christian, that opened up a lot of stuff. Having George over the years has opened up a lot of stuff. Having a player like Debo adds new ideas and things like that. And we'll see when we go in this draft what that can do. But you always got to try to stay ahead of the game. But you don't just do that with just drawing plays in a napkin. You do that with good players and thinking how to balance them out.
And you know what else I found interesting too, Steph, real quick,
Yeah.
Before we go into this, when he was asked about replacing Debo with a Debo-like player,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, we want a difference maker. And that lends itself to the thing that I always say with wide receivers is that different receivers win in different ways. Some win with route running, some win with just physical gifts and just jumping over people. So it sounds to me like they're not trying to fill that role with somebody of Debo's skill set. They want a difference maker. Could it possibly be, Steph, that the 49ers are getting back to just drafting receivers who can run routes very well and get themselves open?
God, I hope so. I hope so. And to that point, like I do think Debo was absolutely a difference maker, right? But that ran its course. So like yes, you're looking for new wrinkles. And on this, like I think one reason that we kind of went some years without seeing new wrinkles, and some people would argue like there are new wrinkles, like Rich would probably say there are new things in here, man. Um, but I do think that from the standpoint of the personnel, like a lot of that personnel was more or less the same, like with Debo, with Kittle. So like I think it is nice to now go into this offseason knowing that okay, Debo is not there, so you're looking for a new player who's going to be a featured part of that offense, and you're going to see what that player kind of opens up for you to be able to do on the offense. And I think that's the exciting part of all this. And I think, Kyle even said like he's looking forward to going into this season more so than he has in years past. And I think because it's kind of this fresh start and it opens up more possibilities to what he could do.
Kyle Williams is the draft pick as well, too, guys. Just make sure that you remember that. But you know what what was kind of funny too? I believe it was Matt Barrows. Matt Barrows was the star of this show, by the way.
Yes,
he was real good. He was the star of the show, man. Like he was just cooking. And he asked Kyle about, is there an obvious starter besides Nick Bosa on the defensive line? And he goes, yeah, I think it's obvious. And he's like, do you want to give us a hint? He was like, no, if it's obvious, then, like, again, like a snarky answer. It's just, I thought that was funny. It was just a nice little back and forth between Barrows and him, because I think while Kyle was trying to make a point, he also has no idea about who's the other like definitive starter. He's like, of course we got somebody in mind, and and I'm like, no, you don't. Like you're just stalling right now. Like Barrows got you. So the real star of the show is Matt Barrows, by the way. So yeah, I thought that was pretty funny as well.
Kyle just giving us like the best content,
I will say this. I thought that, I think it was like 2 league meetings ago, Kyle looked very tired when he went to speak that one time. Like very tired. I think it was like him, Lynch. They both were like they were on a heater the night before. Kyle didn't look so tired. I think Kyle just looks tired based on what's been happening, over the years. But I thought Jed looked a lot more like he tied one on last night than Kyle did. Kyle looked good today. Like Kyle had the slick back hair, and he had the nice suit. Like he looked good today. I'm not gonna lie.
Coffee in hand. But like good. I get it. I know everyone always critiques how John, Kyle, Jed look at these owners meetings. It is like 5 a.m. for them, their body clock time. So like that is tough. They probably had to wake up at least like at 4 for them to be on time there. So no, that is tough. I mean, going to the combine when you got to wake up early for the interviews at like 8 a.m.
but we're not the coaches and the GMs. Like, and we get to take breaks and everything. It's on too. No. So what Steph's alluding to is you're up until 4 or 5 in the morning at the combine, and then you're up at 6 or 7 because you got to be right back at the thing. But the difference is, we're just part of the media. We're not the people that have to talk, right? Like, so again, like when you tie one on the night before and you show up, it's pretty obvious who's doing what, right?
Yeah, like, that's the group picture with all the coaches, like
Kyle just looks like he just does not want to be there. Like he just does not want to be there. He's just like, oh God, man, just hurry up and take the picture, man. I'm sitting next to Stefanski, man. God, just get me. I don't know why he sounds more and more like Rich now at this point than Kyle, but like he just looks agitated, right? Yeah. It's just Kyle just looks like
just give me some tape, man.
Oh God, man, just hurry up and take the picture. It's Stefanski and Pete Carroll's 2 seats over. Get me out of here. But yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. He looked pretty good there as well too. Steph, I think that's pretty much it. We got our serious update about the health of our punter, which is something that we gravely have been worried about and thinking about. We found out the process of the Kyle Shanahan and Trey Lance thing, and and what led to Jake Moody, and 49ers media madness, huh, Steph? I'm
Hey,
sorry.
you still in it? Oh no, I knew I was gonna get cooked by Croc,
Like,
man. I mean,
there, man. And I
I
mean,
thought I was going the round before, honestly. Like Nick Wagner, I love his work. So I thought I was gonna be out well before
don't
that.
worry, it's up for me because Brad Graham's gonna smoke me or whatever. But to just be a part of the Elite Eight is pretty cool. To get past Chris Biederman was pretty cool. I didn't expect that either. So yeah, hey, look, we're well represented. Rob could have made it. If he didn't run into me, because I would have smoked him if that would have been the case or whatever.
Rob's
But I don't
still
know.
in.
You're up against Matt Mayoko though, pal, man. Matt
Yeah,
Mayoko,
man.
Your
time is
that's
done.
it's my dad when my dad's not around, gang. I don't know, man. I don't know who to. It's either vote for the boss man or vote for the guy who's been really, really nice to me anytime that we've ever met. So yeah, but it was really cool to see Rob Guerrero move on. And then Jordan Elliott, man. I mean, this guy's a freight train. Who could stop him?
Love Jordan. Yeah,
Love Jordan, man.
This is a tough one here.
Croc and Brad, they have who hates Croc? Point to someone who hates Croc.
Didn't he win like 2 years ago? He won, like,
and point to someone who hates Brad. Where plenty of people think I'm an idiot. Like, that's
we know
fine.
where this is going.
Yeah.
We know where this is going.
100%. So, Andre's asking the real good question, Rob, and we can talk about this. I know Steph wasn't here for the last episode, but is Stats wearing Yankees gear today? He is not.
Must bet, huh?
We said right now that we are going to do this on the draft stream. He'll put on the Yankee hat. He'll feel like a winner for once. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be real good. So yes. And shout out to me for knowing that there's no way that Cleveland Browns would.
He's wearing blue. I mean, he's halfway there already.
See, but you know what though, Rob? And now that you're here, I'm glad that you're here. If you were a Red Sox fan, I would have never agreed to that. I would have never agreed to, wear a Red Sox hat at all. I would but a Mariners hat? Mariners hats are fire. I would have bought the one with the teal bill, the one that Ken Griffey used to wear. Like, Mariners hats are dope. But if you were a Red Sox fan, I wouldn't have bet you or whatever. So, but hey, don't trip, should Stats be swinging a torpedo bat?
Yeah, what is with that, man? Like, what?
I mean, it's taking the league by storm, man. Ellie De La Cruz hit 2 home runs yesterday with it. It's taking the league by storm, man. Torpedo bats are all the wave. So, hey, that'll do it for this episode of Bully Ball on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. Steph and I have YouTube channels as well. Steph is doing great work with her prospect interviews. Make sure you guys check that out and make sure you're subscribed to her channel. Later today, I'm going to be doing a retro film breakdown of Brock Purdy kicking the Seattle Seahawks ass, which should be fun, just to kind of break up the monotony of mock drafts and all this other crap or whatever. So, check that out on my channel. And as always, wherever you get your audio podcasts, make sure you're subscribed to the Gold Standard Podcast Network. For Steph, for Jay, we're out here.
Peace.